You're listening to The Builder's Mindset with Mike DiGiovanni, presented by Amazing Mindsets. All right, welcome back to another episode of The Builder's Mindset. Well, it is officially, and has been for a couple weeks, the end of the first quarter. And man, has this been one for the books. All the reporting is starting to come in. We've done some quick podcasts on those builders that are off the normal cycle, Lennar, KB, Toll, and KHAV. And we're about ready to start rolling into earnings report season for Q1. Next few weeks is going to be a lot of them, and we will get out the earnings report for Q1 pretty soon, because I think that is going to tell us a whole lot of, I don't want to say nothing, but I think it's going to tell us what we already know. And there's a lot of craziness going on in the world right now. And I was originally going to title this podcast, it's the end of the first quarter. Are you making any game time adjustments? And as I've been talking to trade partners, builders, all everybody wants to do is talk about tariffs. What are tariffs going to do? I'm going to be tomorrow, not from when you listen to this, but literally tomorrow. Today is the 15th. And on the 16th, I am going to be a guest with my good friend, Michelle Skeldon. She is a leadership coach, phenomenal sales professional on the trade partner side. And a lot of trade partners are trying to get a better handle on how to deal with cost increases. And so coming back to any adjustments that you're going to make, I wrote the title and thought about doing this a couple months ago, because I always like to do something that ends on the end of the quarter, kind of roll into the earnings report. Love doing those, really enjoy that data and kind of getting into it. And I think what we saw from Lennar's first quarter and KB's, we saw a similar tale from both of them. Essentially, demand is there. Affordability is still the challenge. Lennar is going to continue to push forward and figure out ways to adjust pricing and incentivize to keep their production pace and their even flow. They've historically, over the last 12 months, kind of been pushing over that 5 sales per community per month. I think they're going to just try to stay north of 4, which is still solid. I mean, that's a solid business plan to deliver to your trade partners. And so they were relatively optimistic about the long term. And KB, same thing. They basically said that they had to make some strategic adjustments in pricing, and they felt like that the sales and traffic was picking up in the post reporting period. So I think their call was in late third week of March or first week of April. Their Q1 ended the end of February. And so they were alluding to that the selling season was coming back in March. So this is actually what I am looking to hear from a lot of the builders, is how were the sales in March relative to last March and or relative to January, February? Was there sentiment that traffic is picking up in March? It's moving. If you read the headlines, it's nothing but negativity, and I understand it's scary right now. And how can we make decisions and game time adjustments if we're not sure what's going to happen with these tariffs? And they're on again, they're off again. I mean, you name it, right? So I'm going to go back to controlling what you can control. In the Bible, Jesus on Sermon on the Mount talks about, don't worry about where your food's going to come from. Don't worry about what clothes you're going to wear, that God will provide. And I don't want to get too biblical on you, but there's a great line in there that I think can apply to a lot of us. Is he essentially then says, like, will all your worry add in even an hour to your life? And what I would say to you all is all of this rancor and worry and phone calls and stress about what are going to happen with tariffs. And Trump is on again with him, off again. He's like, he doesn't negotiate like a lot of us. I do know a few people who negotiate somewhat like Trump, but he doesn't negotiate like a lot of people do. And so I think what's frustrating for me when I talk to clients and people in the industry is I hear a lot of complaining about the tariffs and how Trump is handling it, but I don't hear a lot of this is the adjustments that I'm going to make whether or not the tariffs come to pass. We talked in a previous podcast where I said the one most important thing, if you get your product right, and what does that mean? Well, it means a multitude of things. Are you designing the right product for the markets you build in? Are you designing product that you can repeat and use again and again so your trade partners learn it and you can dial in your quantities, your takeoffs, and your costs and really learn those products? Are you designing your product in the most efficient manner possible so you're using the least amount of materials in those homes? Are you reducing your square footage relative to the number of bedroom and bathroom counts to the lower end of your programmatic target? Or are you just doing the same old, same old? I was just having a conversation with a leader of a very respected private builder not too long ago. Actually, this week, as a matter of fact. And we were talking about the struggle, like the goal of getting to double-digit net profit. That's the goal. And I can't help but ask everybody who's listening right now, if you know somebody in finance in a home builder, ask them, are you at double-digit net? Let me just 10%. Is your net after-tax profit 10%? It really, ideally, you want it to be 12, but in times like right now, we want to shoot for plus 10. If you're not double-digit net and you're also not doing something to get to that place, you're essentially no different than somebody who, wishes they were a faster runner but don't practice sprints and hill repeats. Wishes you could run further but, run maybe once a month. Wishes you were healthier but don't really watch what you eat. Don't go to the gym. I hate to get real about it, but seriously, complaining about the tariffs, you have no control over that. So can you add 1 minute to your life for all the worry about tariffs? Or better yet, let's put it this way. If you're not double-digit net, is all the complaining we're doing about tariffs, is any of that going to help you move that needle on your net margin? And I say net because, it does start with gross, but there are things you could do before gross and after gross, right? I'll go product development will get you, in my opinion, that's going to get you gross, and we want to be there. But in our earnings report, we show data of the number of closings per employee, the number of the dollars of revenue per employee. Use that as a guide, as a tool. Where do you stack up compared to these publics? And why do I say it's okay to look at that too? Oh, they got scale, they got scale, they got scale. Well, if you look at the publics and you look at the 20 or so publics that are on the report, the smallest of those publics, are doing 4,000 a year. Yeah, that's probably a lot compared to a lot of builders out there. But the point that I want to, the trend that I see is, when you look at from those 4,000 a year builder publics, the smaller ones like the Smith Douglases, the Green Bricks, all the way up to Lennar and Horton, who are doing 80, 90,000, and everything in between, I see bigger builders with lower margins than smaller builders. I see bigger builders doing more closings per employee than smaller builders, and I see smaller builders doing more closings per employee than larger builders. What all of that shows me from an index perspective is that it doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter your size. If you consider yourself a production, or God forbid I say tract builder, If you consider yourself a production builder and you're not double-digit net, there's things you should be doing, things you should be evaluating to determine how to get to that place. And a very wise division president once said to me, actually to a group of us, he had the leadership team in there, and he said, look, we need to get our margins up, but we got to stop always looking at the cost to build the house. He said, everybody's got to do their part. We've all been doing this for a long time. We've got to put every idea out there, from our sales and marketing expense to our cycle time and our variance purchase orders to our negotiating with our trade partners and how we're getting the best price for what we're buying, and to product development. And I keep coming back to this because I've had, I've led regional cost savings initiatives that have, over the course of 3 months in good times, just a concerted effort, realized nearly $10 million in savings from that initiative. With that and all the other initiatives that I've been a part of and seen, and option package implementation, et cetera, spec reduction, you name it, the single best way to reduce your cost is to get a handle on your product development, get it tied to the hip with purchasing or under purchasing, teach your purchasing team how to be a part of product development, teach your product development team how to take the lead from the purchasing. Do it early, do it often, engage the trade partners, build that process that we've talked about. And we're actually going to be, we've got a webinar coming out pretty soon where we're going to do product development for production home builders. I wouldn't describe that per se as low-hanging fruit. When we can go look for low-hanging fruit, I think that the low-hanging fruit is going to get you, let's call it maybe $1 a square foot, $1.50 a square foot. And when I say low-hanging fruit, I'm talking about it's really not a big deal to the sales team if you take this out or you adjust this. It doesn't affect the trades too much. It doesn't affect the installation or design. You can get $1 a foot and go for that. You should do everything that you can right now, because every dollar does count. I'm not saying it doesn't, but and this is why I don't call product development low-hanging fruit. It's not easy to do. It takes culture shift. It takes resiliency. It takes discipline. I mean, I can say it, implementing a true product development process that will prove out true cost savings for you. I wouldn't even say it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's an ultra marathon, not a marathon. And that's coming from a guy who understands running long distances. And it's like doing it day after day. You have to stick with it, even when it hurts, even when it's boring, even when it's difficult, because it's not low-hanging fruit, but what you get out of it, you want to get $4, $5+ a foot in savings. Oh, and by the way, you push that square footage size down with the same bedroom, bathroom count, and it can be done. It's about efficient design, okay? Make some tough choices, make the process work. You can more than offset any of the tariffs that are coming, in my opinion, from a net perspective, okay? And there's a whole other thing we could talk about too in terms of how the tariffs cost out. Particularly, I love to talk to the folks in the Western United States who are very turnkey, and it can be a little more challenging and difficult to translate a tariff into what it should cost. The John Burns team has put out some data that I think is phenomenal. I think those guys do incredible research. And it's good data, especially for the folks in the West, because you should look at it, because in the West, when we buy a lot of stuff turnkey, it's very hard for us to understand what an increase in tariff on softwood lumber coming out of Canada will do to pricing. But if you just look at like the forecasts and the estimates that we're talking about, I'm telling you, you can more than offset that by designing your product right, getting your spec right, getting your scopes right, dialing that in. And oh, guess what? It's just like I look at this every year since I've been in this industry, there's always that new year ready mix increase, and they condition us. It's going to be between $5 and $15 a yard. And when it ends up being $9, we're happy because it's a little less than halfway. So we get conditioned for that. So what I say is still push and assume the tariffs are coming, assume they're going to be the worst case scenario, and go out and try to offset that with new product development for the future. And the tariffs will ultimately, just like ready mix, the actual net cost will be somewhere in between. And I believe it'll be less than half of what we're forecasting when the negotiations get done. If this were a political podcast, I would go for another half hour talking about how the U.S. is the consumer of the world and every other nation ultimately needs us. And even if it is true, some of the stuff that is being put out there about what supposedly Canada, the EU, and Japan are doing with U.S. bonds to try to scare the U.S. out of this, it's an ultra marathon too. And this discussion about getting trade fair and right is going to continue for some time. And my argument to you is if you're not double digit net, what are you doing to get there? And if you are double digit net, what are you doing to preserve that, assuming that tariffs are going to increase the cost of goods? And hey, at the end of the day, maybe it increases the cost of goods. Maybe you offset that by smart design so we can keep our house prices the same. And maybe a fair number of products start getting made a little bit closer to the houses that we build. Once again, just for a political podcast, I would say making some more American jobs, right? So, and look, that is one of the things that I love about home building. It creates jobs, good paying trade jobs right here. And so I want to caution all you builders to just go out. If you don't focus on your product development and you have your purchasing team go out and renegotiate contracts, you know what you're ended up doing right now? And I'm hearing this from trade partners. You're just squeezing the margin of your trade partners, and they're going and squeezing the labor costs. And that is a whole other bad thing. Trades should make a good living. Trades should be able, in my opinion, in the production world, okay? I'm not saying, and no offense told, not picking on you guys, you build a wonderful house. But when we look at these entry-level builders, this is kind of the benchmark for me. LGI, DR Horton, Lennar in certain markets, Meritage for sure, some of the Taylor Morrison communities, some KB, Century Complete for sure, Southeast. When we look at these builders, focusing on entry level, and you can go look at the earnings summary. I'm talking those builders who are outside of California. Their national average, right, is under 400,000, maybe even 450. If the person framing that house can't afford to buy that house, we have another problem that's going to happen. And our responsibility as builders is to get out the most costs out of the homes from a design and a material perspective, so we buy less materials to build the house. Because why? That helps the builder, it helps the homeowner, and it doesn't hurt the trade partner or their employees or their labor. If I take a 2x4 out of a house and I save a few dollars, doesn't hurt anybody. Trade partner can make the same margin. Labor working for the trade partner can get paid the same amount. And if I don't have tariffs, I just reduced my cost of goods sold, my COGS. Now my net margin just went up. So keep that in mind. Think about that. And as I said, I was going to call this podcast, it's the end of the second quarter. You making any game time adjustments, first quarter, end of the first quarter adjustments? What are you doing? Let me know. Reach out, because you should be. And these tariffs, if they haven't scared you into really getting something going in terms of doing something different, you can't keep doing the same thing expecting different results. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and when he asked why I left purchasing, and I didn't really leave purchasing. I left corporate home building because I wanted to have a bigger impact by being able to work with more people. And that's my passion for this industry. And so we chuckled about the same old grind that purchase. It's what I've talked about. Our budgets get screwed up because our product development is screwed up. And we go to the purchasing team and say, we need you to go back and get all the trade partners to reduce their cost by 5%. Look, it's a fact. If you don't like hearing it, I'm sorry, but I'm just calling it like it is. This is what we do, and I've done it for 20 years. And so was this VP of purchasing that I had lunch with the other day. And so purchasing is one of the hardest departments in home building to staff and to staff right. A lot of the people are green. Very few of them really know how to build a house. And we're going to them and asking them to negotiate for the single largest percent cost of our revenue. And we got to be able to do better. And for me, it's product development. It's my passion. It's what I love working on. It's what I love teaching people about. And time and time again, you give them a Camry because they can afford a Camry and they're happy. They've got a great car that they know is reliable. But if you give them the Lexus and they really can't afford the Lexus, the ES300, what ends up happening? You discount it and you incentivize it to sell it to them because of course they want it. They can only afford the Camry. Let's go out and be smart and design Camrys. And some people need to design Corollas, So let's control what we control. Let's go after the product with a sense of excitement and tenacity to deliver a product that's as good or better than what we're doing now, but that builds for less so we can control the things in our control and help the affordability, help keep house prices down, help keep our sales volume up, and help maintain our margins, get to that double-digit net. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you again next week. Talk to you again next week. You'll hear from us again next week because we are still doing it. I think this is episode 33. And if you like this, please share, like, subscribe. You know it. It helps push us up so that other folks hear and see about it and get to hear some of this stuff. And also, we're launching our Warrior Profit Academy next month, or actually this month. We're going to do our first webinar is going to be free to anybody who signs up. It's going to be product development for production home builders, open to anybody and everybody, no charge. Just sign up. We'll put the link in the show notes so that you have it there. It'll also be out and about on the socials, the networks, and whatnot. We hope you come. We hope you enjoy it. We're going to go over how you basically run a product development process, inclusive of purchasing, so that you can achieve some of these objectives that we've been talking about. That's all we got for now. For then, until next week, have an amazing day, and we appreciate you.
You're listening to The Builder's Mindset with Mike DiGiovanni, presented by Amazing Mindsets.